My name's Dean Hewison, and I'm the Across Aotearoa Regional Manager.
And you're a how many time national winner, Dean?
2 times national, 3 times Wellington. And one of those ones was Good Girl, which I'll put the link to Good Girl into the chat over there. So if you haven't seen Good Girl, it's 4 minutes long, and maybe have a quick peek of it so you can see. I'm going to reference it quite a lot in one of the as a case study. So when I'm talking about how I approach the weekend, Good Girl's the example that I'll use, and that was the one that won in 2021. So yeah, jump on that YouTube if you get a chance, if you want to have 2 things going at once, and have a look at that.
Yeah, and that was the first year that I was the Te Whanganui-a-Tara Regional Manager. So kia ora everyone, my name's Thomas Coppell. My pronouns are they, them, and I am Wellington's Regional Manager, and I have been since 2021, but I actually started with the competition in lockdown. I was one of the people involved in the lockdown edition. And it is my absolute pleasure every year to get to watch in Te Whanganui-a-Tara up to about 180 films. And it's really, yeah, the community that we have in 48 is the thing that I love the most, which I'm sure that Dean also feels, having been such a storied competitor and now a regional manager himself. Yeah, so it's these moments where we get to interact with you that we love, and we get to do that at the events that we're about to experience over the next couple of months as well, whether in person or online, you know, with acknowledging Across Aotearoa is all around the country. So should we, for the people that, Bridget, do you actually want to introduce yourself briefly? Do you want to say hi?
You have to now. You
have to now. You've committed.
Okay, kia ora everybody. I'm Bridget. I'm the new regional manager in Auckland. So I've spoken to a few of you on email and Facebook, but lovely to meet you all, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any questions to me. And thank you to Thomas and Dean and Ness, who have all helped me learn the 48 hours ropes, but I'm looking forward to learning more tonight as well. So lovely to meet you all.
Cool. So you know, we'll have a whole range of people in this call that with a range of experience, so we're going to try and be something for everyone. So some of it you may already know, especially if you've competed a few times, but we're just going to touch very briefly on how the weekend works, so that everyone's starting from the same place, and then we'll go into a bit more detail about how you can find a point of difference to make your film, and what sort of hints and tips we can provide you with that could give you a bit of an edge.
So 7 p.m. next Friday, actually 6:30 p.m. next Friday, there's going to be a live stream, and the link, you can probably find that on our website, and also on our website there's going to be a list of team names and numbers, where you'll find which will be the genre that you're going to be assigned. And so 6:30 p.m. during the live stream, we're going to do a health and safety briefing. We're going to hype you up for the competition. And then at 6:50 something or rather on the dot, we will announce all our genres and elements. And your genres are assigned to you with those numbers that you'll find on the website, and the elements every team must include in their film. And then you have 48 hours to make a film. And you have to deliver by 7 p.m. on the dot on Sunday. No excuses, no 7:0001. Otherwise, you will be unfortunately disqualified. And it's a lot of fun, and it is quite stressful, but it is mostly fun.
With that extra, that 1 second late is too late. That's legit. Like if it starts uploading at 1 second past 7. Unfortunately, you would need to expect a call to say that you were disqualified. The way that works is when you start uploading on Digital Pigeon, from when you start the upload, that's the time. that we'll be taking. So it doesn't have to have finished uploading by 7 p.m. It just needs to have started. And we'll talk a little bit later about ways that you can protect yourself against anything going bad with your internet. We'll come to that further along. But so it's when you press the upload button, that's where we're taking that time from.
And yeah, and so the weekend, Dean, do you want to talk, should we talk about kind of some things like that tend to kind of how you kind of shape your weekend? Should we talk about Good Girl and how you shapes your weekend?
Well, what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about the genre we got and how our thought process to where we ended up with the story of Good Girl. And then I'll also talk about how we structured the weekend, simply because that's how I almost always structure the weekend for the 48 hours. I have the same sort of schedule in mind. I mean, everything can change, but I have the same schedule in mind every year that I've entered. So, or at least since I entered with Ruth and Ness, which is the first time we won was the sleeping plot, and Ruth and Ness were involved in that. And that's where I got my schedule from Ruth. I just use that every year, so it's trusted and true. So with Good Girl, we got Splatter, which was also a splatter or musical, and we've done a musical before when we felt prepared to do a musical, but in this particular year we didn't feel that we had the preparation, the resources on hand to do that musical, so we said we'll go with Splatter. And then we talked for a while about what a splatter film might be like, and what some of the examples around were, and we fairly quickly realized that we didn't want to do a film where someone was being chased down their hallway with an axe and explosions of blood like that. So then we were like, okay, so what's another way of looking at splatter that can definitely tick that genre box, but be unlike what the first thoughts of what a splatter film might be. And we were quite lucky with our team in that year. We had a lot of dog owners, and so it didn't take us too long to be like, what if we had a dog walker walking across a minefield blowing up a lot of dogs? And we weren't sure if that was a good idea or not to start with, because some people don't want to see dogs blowing up, and we weren't sure how much that we'd be able to get away with. But the more we talked about it, the more we were sort of coming around to, this would be a really interesting way to approach a splatter film. So I think that's my first piece of advice for you is what's a way that you can approach your genre that is not the same way that everybody else is going to approach their genre. And if you identify first what are the ways that this is usually told, then you've got a little list of things to try to avoid. So then you can go, okay, well, I mean, for us, we identified splatter. There's got to be a lot of blood. There's got to be gore. You know, it's got to be heightened, probably funny. Most of the splatters are pretty funny. So we're looking at a horror comedy with a lot of blood. And that was where they were like, those are the conventions we need to hit with, and the tropes that we need to hit with this genre. But we didn't need to have a baddie. We didn't need to have someone like coming after people like a horror or anything. So we were looking at other ways to do that. And then with Good Girl, you know, we decided that we could sneakily start blowing up some dogs sort of off camera, just to get people to ease people into it. And then we could do like a more kind of obvious one. And by this stage, we would hope that the audience was like along on the journey with us. And then we decided that once we introduced a hero dog, at that point, we could no longer blow up any dogs. That's we kind of made that kind of rule with us was, okay, we can have people laughing at dogs blowing up for a while, but once we're investing in a dog, all of a sudden it's not going to be as funny anymore to blow up dogs once we start once they've got like names and characters, once we care about them. So what we tend to do is at 7 o'clock, I try to have the whole team, as much as possible, everybody that's working on the film, I like to have them there at 7 o'clock so that everybody's involved and everybody's got buy-in and everybody can contribute to these early discussions. The thing that you got to be really careful of is not giving that too much time. So like by 9 o'clock, you really want to have sort of landed on a story that you want to tell. You don't have to have worked out the whole story just yet, but with us, with Good Girl, we had done that by 9 o'clock. And then at 9, that's a really good time to go, okay, we need to sort out our cast, we need to sort out our locations, we need to sort out our art department, our props, any costumes. And the more people you've got there, the more resources you've got available. So, you know, for Good Girl, we would have had about maybe 12 or 13 people there in the room then. And it was really cool because we had an art director, but she had a little team. So, you know, they were all kind of, you get this costume, because we needed to have a waterproof jacket because we're going to put lots of blood on it. We were going to have multiple takes. So it's like, okay, we need to get a yellow waterproof jacket. We need to find out where we can shoot this. We need to arrange some dogs. We need dog bits. So, you know, we're on the phone to a dog groomer being like, do you have any dog here?
Dog bits?
We got a full bag of dog fur that we could use to not only just throw bits of bloody clumps of fur, but also build bits of dog. I really hope that people have seen it, because otherwise it's just the weirdest weirdest frame of reference. And so, yeah, if the people are doing those things from about 9, then I like to write with a group of 3 usually. So we don't write with the entire group of people. We'll kind of brainstorm the idea, and once we've got a rough shape of everything, then we can get that pre-production done. But then 3 people means that when you're writing your script, it's not just one person free-flowing and making all the choices quickly themselves without questioning them. It's really good to have everything interrogated, I find. So, like, if 3 people are in agreement that the way that this conversation or the way this scene is going is working, then that's great. If one isn't, then you talk about it and you try to find out why, and you try to see whether that's a valid thing or whether it's just a personal taste thing. And those discussions and that interrogation is what I find helps to get a really kind of tight script. And I really do think you need to invest the time that it takes to do that. So we probably started writing Good Girl around 10:30, because the idea generation came up. We had the structure. 9 o'clock, we started doing some pre-pro. Then people were like, okay, we're going to head off and do the rest of this from home, or we're going to go home and get some sleep. And the writers were like, cool, now we've got the space. Let's do this. And even though we had the whole outline sort of there, it still took us probably 4 or 5 hours to write the script. And like I said, that's going through, like, interrogating everything, making things as short and as simple as you possibly can, trying to simplify things. When you realize that you're getting too ambitious, what's a simpler way to do this? Because you always got to be like, how can we get this done in a day? And for us, you know, it was an exterior shoot, so you've also got to be aware of when you're going to lose the sun and shift light and stuff. So and you know, it's very short days next weekend, so if you are doing exterior shoots, that's something you've got to bear in mind with the complexity of what you're trying to get done. So we will always reassemble on Saturday at 7 a.m. unless something comes up that's completely like something that's, if we had to be somewhere at a cafe that was going to open at 7 and we wanted to shoot earlier, we'd obviously get there a couple of hours earlier, but that hasn't happened for us before. So by default, our usual is 7 a.m. meet, have some coffee, have some breakfast together, and then try to and have scripts printed out at that time as well. And then that hopefully means that by 8 or 8:30, everyone's on the same page. We've had a bit of a pre-production sort of like, what are we doing? Where are we going first? How are we getting there? And then around 8:30, we can head out and be at the first location at something like 9. And that's what we did with Good Girl. We were shooting the first shots at 9 a.m. and we were in one general area for the whole thing, which was quite handy because packing up and moving takes precious time. And then we finished about 5:30, something like that, which was, it was a really good time for us. We had to have it in daylight, so that felt really good for us to not be shooting too late into the night because it gave us more time to do that post. What we were also doing was sending camera cards. We had one of the writers was also one of the editors, and so it can really buy you some time if you've got somebody on the Saturday sitting at an edit suite waiting for a card to come, and if you can get a runner to bring a card to the editor, they can start sort of getting things laid out, start putting scenes together, and then by the time you've finished the shoot, you can come back and whatever, you've got a head start. And this always seems like a really kind of advantageous way to do it. There was one time that I did it in a group of 2, and obviously there was nobody that could get a head start. And so when we finished that shoot, and I think we finished about midnight or something like that, then you get into the edit suite and you're starting from scratch. It's Sunday already, it's nearly Sunday. So that was when we really felt it was like, oh wow, this is what it's like to start editing after the shoot. This is tough. So yeah, if you can have an editor working on some stuff during the shoot, really does buy you some time. And then so I would have a quick sleep and the editor would keep working, and then I would get up at say 3 in the morning, 4. I'd take over from the editor, and I'd do some editing while he has a sleep. And yeah, that's sort of how we did it. We'd sort of tag in over that Saturday night, and because he'd had a sleep in on the, he'd had time in the Saturday when we were shooting to relax, then he had that kind of the gas in the tank to go a bit later onto that Saturday night. Now at 6 on Sunday morning, 6 or 7, that might be roughly when you start seeing your rough cut for the first time. Believe me when I say the rough cut on Sunday morning is the worst film you've ever made in your life. You will always look at it and be like, this has been a huge disaster. This is terrible. This rough cut sucks. I don't want to show it to anyone. I don't know if we should keep going. That's the 6 a.m. Sunday thing. Don't worry. It gets better. It gets better from there. But like that always happens. The sound's terrible. The shots don't really feel like they work. Pacing feels weird. It's a rough cut. It's allowed to feel like that. If you just know that happens, then you can work through it. The first time I did it and that had that feeling, I was like, I'm just going to pack this all in. This is terrible. But we forced our way through it, and then yeah, every other year it's come back. It's always been there. And so just know that it does get better. The rough cut is meant to be a bit rough. That's why it's called a rough cut. Ideally, and this doesn't always happen, but ideally, you want to get that rough cut polished into your picture lock by lunchtime if you can, by noon. That's a really good sort of time to aim for. It doesn't always work, but the sooner you can get picture lock, then you can start getting sound and color grading and any visual effects that you may or may not have, giving that the time it needs. Sometimes early on, like before we adopted this schedule, we wouldn't do picture lock until like 5:30 in the evening on Sunday. And then the poor sound post person was like, okay, I'm going to see what I can do to tidy up the sound. And they just didn't have time to do much at all. So if you want to give any sound post, any sound mixer, a sound designer, or a composer, you know, time to do a good job, then the sooner you can lock that cut, the better for them. So aiming for 12 o'clock on a Sunday gives you 7 hours to do a color grade. Color grade doesn't usually take that long, you know. Someone might spend 2 or 3 hours on that, and then you've got your pictures looking good. With Good Girl, we had some exploding dogs, so we had some visual effects that we needed to get done. He needed those 7 hours, or you know, the 6 hours that we gave him. But yeah, the sound and the composition, because we had a composer working with that locked cut, they needed as much time as they could get, and we handed that in with something like 5 minutes spare. So it's just utilizing all of that time, maximizing the amount of because also you hear about people handing in at 4:30 or 5, and I'm like, that's cool, that's fine if you can do that. It's nice to relax for a few hours, but same with writing. Like if you've got the time to do it, use it. You know, I don't really see the point in delivering it a few hours early, because I feel like that's a few hours where you could be like, oh, I'll just make it a little bit better. I'll do another pass on the sound. I'll add a bit more music, or I'll fill out the music that we've got, or you know, more effort into the color grade, or make my credits nicer. You know, like 48 hours is already not much time, so there's no bonus to do it in 45 hours.
But definitely deliver at 6:55. Not at.
Look, I think anytime after 6:30 is good.
Yeah.
Like you deliver at 6:30, that to me is perfect. You know, like I don't usually do that because I'm not ready. But like the goal is to deliver at 6:30. And then you will feel relaxed at the end, but you will also feel like you've utilized all that time. Now, the one thing I would say is super important, and this relates to handing it in, is on the website it does talk about checksum generation. So you should, when you've finished your film, before you submit it, you run a was it MD5, I think, program. The information's on the website. You should go have a look. Everything's on the website. So basically, like, the more you can look on the website, the less questions you'll have for everybody else. Checksum is like giving your film a fingerprint. And so we know if you press submit at 6:59 and 59 seconds, and then your internet, you have a power cut and it stops uploading, you give your regional manager a call and you say, here's the situation, what's going to happen. First question will be, did you run it? Did you generate a checksum? Because if you did, then we will still accept your video, because we will know when that video was made. It will tell us on the checksum that it was done before 7 p.m. So conversely, if you're like, I lost my internet, here's the video. If the checksum doesn't match, we'll be like, this is not the video you were uploading. It's a different video. So what it can do is it can give you peace of mind. Having that checksum takes maybe 2 minutes, but you could practice it. You can get it down to 1. It wouldn't take you, you can generate a checksum out of any digital file, I believe. So just make a checksum out of any video you've made. Make sure you know how to do it, get that done, have it ready to just copy and paste into your wrap-up form, and then it's just such a relief to know that even if your internet cuts out, then you're going to be safe. Your film is not, your weekend isn't wasted,
Exactly. And last year I had Video Shop, who were the Wellington City winners, call me at like 6:50 because their computer crashed, and I just encouraged them to just keep going, just figure it out, whatever they do, just keep going. And they ended up getting an export out, submitting a checksum right before the cutoff, and still also delivering right before 7 p.m. And they won Wellington, so that that process and figuring out that process in advance with the checksum and testing it and knowing how to do it is going to be really helpful. And I pulled up the website because we have heaps of really good information on there that and I really encourage you to go and have a look, especially read all the film submission information, the rules, all the rules, the health and safety stuff, and please drop your questions in the comments. We'll start answering them as well because this is a Q&A. We also have
James as well.
Yeah. We also have some AA guidelines here. And really importantly, on the website, we have regional info where you'll be able to find out all of the information, like region-specific information, including your judges, where the regional finals are taking place, if there are heats in your region. So this webinar is, across Aotearoa leaning. So we have a whole bunch of heats already announced here for across Aotearoa's many regions. And so come along to those, because those heat screenings, even if you don't make the city finals, are awesome. They're like a great way to meet other community members, and really importantly, to hear your film being responded to in an audience, which is the most valuable thing as a person who wants to make films and is interested in making films. To get a live reaction from your audience is so valuable. And it really refines your craft. And what I encourage to do, and I'm sure all of the other regional managers do at their heats as well, is to, at those heat screenings, make yourself a vocal member of the audience. Like, let out those reactions that you might keep quiet in a cinema if you're feeling a little bit shame. But at 48 Hours, we want to hear you laugh. We want to hear you go, ah! We want to hear you go, ah! We want to hear your response in the audience, and it makes for a really vibrant experience. Dean, there was some really awesome stuff that you talked to just with sharing about Good Girl, and I had a couple of questions before we bounce to other people. Pardon? Yeah, Picture Lock. Do you want to talk about what Picture Lock is for someone?
Just in case people don't know, I know that many of you will, but Picture Lock is when the edit itself is finished, right? So rough cut, like I said, a terrible thing at 5:30 that you never want to see again. Then you're getting closer to a fine cut. A fine cut is something that you can show to people and get some last notes, tweaks, and those tweaks can be very specific. They can be very, very detailed. Sometimes, some of these fine cut notes are just like, is that shot 2 frames too long? And then you like have a play and it's like, oh yeah, that does work better. And those 2 frames make a big difference. So that fine cut's just been really fussy, and it's important to be fussy. And then when you feel like you've done as much as you can, or when you're out of time and there's like, I'd like to picture lock at 12 o'clock and it's coming up to 12 o'clock, I think that we're pretty ready, then you lock the pictures. And so what that means is that you've got your timeline and the pictures are no longer going to change apart from getting better. They're not going to change duration. They're not going to change content. And same with your sound. So what happens is that, you've got it all lined up to start at a certain number, or time code on your timeline. If you're going to send your pictures to somebody at a different computer who's going to color grade it, and you're going to send your sound off to a sound designer and they're going to do it, and then someone's going to mix it, and the composer's going to compose music to the beats and, to hit the specific moments, everybody is confident that they're working with the correct cut and that it's not going to change. And so that means they can all work with that. Someone makes the pictures beautiful. Someone does a couple of VFX shots. Someone writes a score. We all know that when it comes back into this timeline to be exported, that it is all the exact same length and duration of every single shot and every single beat that it was when you locked it, because this is all about polishing. So you've made the cake is finished, and now you're decorating it. You're decorating it for the last 7 hours. And so that's what a picture lock is making sure that that's not going to change anymore. The only way it's changing is that you're going to take the score and put it into that timeline so that it all fits, and you're going to, those what we do with color grade is we just do it on the edit computer that we've had. So because I use DaVinci Resolve and it's awesome. So so we'll just take the computer to the color grader, who's often the person that shot it, and they'll just work on, they'll duplicate a timeline. We'll always just duplicate new timelines. So if you make a mistake, you can always go back to an earlier timeline. But yeah, duplicate a timeline and call it the color grade, and then there you go. It's all colored in, and then you can duplicate that and have it for sound, and you've got the colored pictures, and then you can add the finished sound as it comes in, and then maybe the score will come in and at last, and you can duplicate it again, and then you've got a timeline of all these finished elements plus credits. You're gonna have to have the introduction at the start, the 10 seconds of your name, your region, your genre, that stuff. All those compulsory things that are all in the website. They're all there telling you exactly what to do. You can have a timeline set up for that you bring in all your finished elements, and it's just good to go there.
Yeah, and in terms of, we've got another question just about editing, and then I'm going to go back in time, and I'm going to ask you, we're going to like ping pong a little bit throughout the process, because you raised some really, really good points. But there is a question here about someone who's always done the editing themselves on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And so how do you ensure that there's like a consistent vision between two people working on the same edit?
Yeah, well, so I'm going to be specific for us, but I'll also try and be vague for everybody. But for us, I write with a guy called Sam, and Sam is also the other editor. So we're in a really good position that we've interrogated that script on Friday night. As the footage is coming in, Sam knows what it's about. He knows what we're trying to do. So when I come back from the shoot, the stuff that Sam's put together is likely to be in the right ballpark for what I'm looking for, because he's very familiar with the story. Not all people will have editors who were writing with them, so really the best thing you can do is communicate, like in that 7 a.m. before you go off to shoot, go through the script with the editor and try to share that knowledge. James is talking about how being the only editor and a bit nervous to bring in a second person. But see, the thing is, as a director, you need to learn how to work with editors. It's won't always be editing your own stuff. And in fact, a lot of producers won't want you to, because they'll think that they'll appreciate that the conversations that take place in an edit suite, and the like I said with writing, the justification of choices or the interrogation of choices helps make the film stronger. So doing everything yourself can be fast, but it doesn't always make for the best choices. And working with an editor and accepting, that sometimes they've got a better idea than you, or even just if they question something and you have to justify why you don't think you should do that, that should make it stronger too, because you have to explain, I think it's like this, I think it should be like this because, and you're all in service of making a better film. So it shouldn't be about ego and I'm right and I'm the director, so do what I say. It should be like, the best choice, the best visual choice, the best editorial choice here is this, and it might not be your one, it might be theirs. So if you're always going to be the director and the main editor, I would encourage you to collaborate with an editor, and when they're having a nap, then you can jump in and make tweaks. You can change cuts. You don't have to just take the stuff that they've done and say, well, that's finished, because it's not finished. It's not finished until fine cut, right? So when Sam goes to sleep and I jump in, I will go, okay, this is pretty close. I need to change this, and I know there was a better take here, so I'm going to put in that other take, and I can tighten this whole thing up quite a lot. Chop, 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 chop. So and then when Sam comes back and I hand it over to him, or we sit together with it, I'll explain what I've done, and he'll be like, oh, cool, yep, that works. if he's like, I didn't think that would work because of this, then we have that chat. So the thing here is, how do you ensure the film has one vision rather than being confusing? Because generally it will have one director. And so the director is working with the editor to put that vision on screen. And so I don't think that you have to be doing everything yourself to have one vision.
Yeah, and that's one of the kind of key things to learn. Like effectively, like filmmaking and film craft is a practice, and being called a practice is on purpose. It's also a collaborative medium. Like a lot of art forms are individual sports or individual crafts, but filmmaking is about that collaborative nature, and it's actually amazing when you get to see someone amplify your own vision and actually take it to a place where it doesn't, you never expected it. And so if you have traditionally always been director, DP, main writer, and the editor, then maybe this is the year that you give a go to a different kind of process and try collaborating with others and feeling what works and what doesn't, and seeing if you can find alignment with someone who has a similar sensibility with you, because that will play out in terms of your future relationships, not just in 48, but in other ways in which you make work. There's also there is a question here, which is a more technical one, from the Opotiki Rangatahi Pa crew, about editing suites and what an editing software and what might be easiest for a newer team to use.
Yeah, I'll just really quickly. I just want to do one last total of what you just said, Thomas. The sure, you may do all four things yourself. You may write it, you may direct it, you may edit it, you may shoot it, but you should give yourself the opportunity to do a better job of one of them. You know, give yourself a chance to focus more on directing and like make some really cool choices because you've got more brain space for that, and give someone a chance to focus on doing a really good DOP job. I can shoot things, I just can't shoot things as well as a DOP. And so I like to get a DOP and to shoot things so that our film is better than if I did everything myself. Okay, this is tricky because it's hard for me to imagine what it's like starting editing because I did that so long ago. I use DaVinci Resolve. It's free, and I find it quite intuitive and quite easy. I've never used iMovie. Does iMovie still exist, Thomas?
Well, something like that. Like there's a lot of free software. Like there's stuff that Rangatahi are now just playing with on their phones as well. And so like just getting familiar with how you place something in a timeline and trim it together might be the best way to go about it, because you can, if you don't have access to like computers or like you're using a phone. Like I'm often really impressed by what is made now with a phone. So utilizing or trying a software that is accessible to them in terms of DaVinci Resolve, which is free, or any of the kind of free service ones, and just practicing in advance might be the best way to kind of get their head around the editing side of it, because it's effectively just putting different videos in order together, you know. Yeah. So the practice of what happens when I put this scene or this shot against this one, and just you know, having a play in that way.
And that's how they all essentially work, apart from Avid. Avoid Avid if you're new, don't go near Avid.
Don't go near
Avid. The rest of them all kind of follow the same sort of setup, right? And so it's just a confusing thing to look at the start, but I honestly I agree with Thomas. I used to be on Adobe Premiere, and I thought I wanted to learn DaVinci because I didn't want to pay Adobe Premiere anymore. And so the best way to do that was I edited a short film on it. So by the end of that short film, I thought I knew DaVinci pretty well. Now you've got 9 days. You could go out and shoot something on your phone. Just need 5, 6, 7, 8 shots, be 1 minute long, and you can edit that. And by the time you've finished editing that, you'll kind of understand how that program works. Now, they do seem complicated because they can do a lot of things, but they can also not do a lot of things if you just don't make them do a lot of things. You can just be as simple as bring it in, trim the ends, that's a cut. Bring in another shot, trim the ends, that's a cut. And then anything else you want to know, I honestly have never been let down by just Googling DaVinci Resolve, how do I do this? Like, the answers are all there. There are YouTube videos for everything. Often the answers will come up with, you know, the video, and it'll take you straight to that point in the video. So yeah, there are some suggestions coming through on the questions about CapCut, stuff like that. So honestly, yeah, in terms of new stuff, if people have already used some stuff, then just use that. And if you want to teach someone, if you want to learn some editing software, then something free and simple, and DaVinci Resolve, I think, is a really strong offer for that.
Yeah, and I think you can edit altogether on DaVinci, I think. Am I correct?
Just in terms of suggestions, so that was the editing suite one.
There's a question here about so there's I'm happy to answer this one. So tips and tricks for teams with a limited amount of people. A team of only college students, so if people coming and going throughout the weekend, scheduling and making sure the amount of sleep is equal. Chances are the amount of sleep won't be equal.
Yeah, I'd give up on trying to make sure the amount
so what I would do, and what I encourage a lot of rangatahi teams to do, is really define your roles up front, and basically define your role. Who's going to direct, who's producing, who's acting, who's writing, who's editing, who's shooting. And by defining those roles really clearly, by what Dean's kind of described about the shape of the weekend, you know, you've got the writing on Friday night, you've got the shooting on Saturday, you've got the editing into Friday, or from Saturday into Sunday. You kind of get a shape of a weekend where if you've got people doing those kind of key things, you know, someone writing, someone editing, someone directing. If it's just 3 people, you kind of separate out the workload, and that means that you'll get sleep throughout the weekend, because the editor doesn't necessarily need to be up late on the Friday night. The director DOP doesn't need to be, you know, the writer's doing the late night on the Friday, the director DOP is doing the late night on the Saturday, and then the editor is starting really early on the really late on the Saturday night and going until delivery. So it kind of matches that way. There's like a kind of natural rhythm to it. Would you agree, Dean?
I do. And the other thing that just reminded me of is one year, you know, and this might work in a classroom situation, for example, if you've got multiple computers. One year we had 3 editors going on one film. We were all in the same room, and we had headphones on, and we were working on a scene each. And then we'd finish the scene and we'd export it. We'd export that as a we'd export the timeline, and somebody in the once we were ready, we could bring them all in, all these things, these timelines, and combine them into one. And that could be interesting in terms of, like, if you've got a few people that are all keen to edit, breaking it up into scenes and joining them together. It's again, you'd want to test that workflow before the weekend. But I remember we found it pretty cool. It was quite fun, because then you go through and polish everything as part of that fine cut process anyway. So you still get that uniformity of vision and voice, but you get to your rough cut earlier. It's kind of something you could look at.
There's a couple of questions here. I might just ping off some quick answers. So there's a question about, can it be over 5 minutes? No. So if your film is over 5 minutes, it will be disqualified.
And that includes credits, doesn't it? That includes.
Yes. So it basically has to be 5 minutes, plus you've got like 10 seconds up the front for the title card and 5 seconds of black at the end. So films should basically exist in the 5 minute 15 range. Ness, am I wrong? Is there any thing I'm not speaking there? There's also a question about when we get our theme, and I'm just going to share my screen one more time. So you get your theme. So we have the live stream on the on Friday night next week, and as part of that, we will announce all of the genres, and on the website. So 2026 comp team genre numbers we're going to have all your team names listed here under your region, and there'll be a number against each one. And that number is aligned with, so basically it will be like genre 1 is the phone, you know, it's like something like that. So so you'll get the numbers in that way. I'll stop sharing my screen now. Dean, I wanted to, talking about genres, I wanted to go right back to the beginning, because I think you were talking about subverting genre with Good Girl. You were thinking, and I would really total what you were saying there, because I watch 180 films a year, and I often see the same story over and over again. And so I would really encourage you all to kind of think, when you get your genres and elements and you're thinking about your story, and you think about the most obvious one, and then do something else, do something different. And we with 48 Hours, we really love originality. We love seeing you respect convention, and we also love when you subvert it, whatever is right for your filmmaking. So when you get your genres and elements, I'm using the example of splatter because you had it, Dean. There was a filmmaker a couple of years after Dean that got the splatter genre that definitely did not want to make a blood and gore splatter film. So their splatter was water, was like the waves of the water. And they made the most unsplattery splatter film ever. And so subverting genre is, and that was fine, you know, because the genres and the elements are markers. They're meant to help create a sense of limitation and something fun that you can include, but they're not like hard and fast rules, so to speak. And with the elements, like one year we had something like Something Invisible, and there's so many ways, and that was the year that you did it, Dean. I think you had Invisible Minds.
We did, and again, we were unsure about whether we were going to get away with that. We're like, I mean, if you looked at the mine, it would be visible, but the idea there was that she couldn't see where to run because there were mines all around her, but couldn't see them. So we were like, to us, that works as an invisible, that ticks that thing, even though you could argue, you know, and you could talk yourself into circles about that. But like, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Like we weren't going to get disqualified because you can look at a mine if you dig it up. Like,
no,
I think that's what we landed on. We're like, that would be a real dick move if that happened. So so you know, we went, that counts as our invisible thing, because it is a story point that she's stuck there, she can't see them, how's she going to get out? So it was important to the story, and those things are meant to help you. They are meant to like you say, that they focus you, and like they shouldn't be obstacles for you to have to squeeze into your story. You should try to make them as much as possible, utilize them as part of your storytelling structures, because I think the judges really appreciate that too, if they know that like you've used those things to help your creativity and to work with them to make your story.
And it's always so fun to experience, like when you see as many films as we do, it really like elevates you among the rest. If we feel like we're surprised, like we're authentically surprised by what you've thrown down, and it makes sense, and it feels earned and interesting, and so swing hard, like do something different and do something unique, and most of the time it's fine. There are some people who are like real particular around the rules, like in our on our screening room chat. Sometimes people could be like, I didn't see your invisible thing, and that's because it's invisible.
Yeah. Having said that, if you don't put in your required elements, you will get disqualified. So
You will. Yes.
that is something that does get checked. I just want to jump in here just to clarify. Someone's asked if you're able to edit together on DaVinci, and then someone else, James, has said only if you've got the paid version, which is probably true if you're going to do it in that particular way. But if everybody had downloaded the free version, you can still do it, and as long as you've got the same version, you can still do your own individual scene on your own computer and export that timeline, and someone with that same version will be able to bring it in. So you might not be working on the same project, like it'd be a slightly fudgier sort of workflow, but like it wouldn't necessarily be the same project that you're working on unless you had the paid one, but you could work on the free one and still send that to another computer and they can import that project and add it to theirs. So there are workarounds for having multiple editors that you can do. But like I say, make sure you got the same version, because otherwise you'll get yourself in trouble, and test it before next Friday.
Absolutely. And just on that, so we were talking about like subverting genres. One of the things in a story thing, Good Girls are really great. You know, it's like pay attention to your surroundings, like, you know, be conscientious about where you go, like don't kind of be, you know, off with the fairies. One of the things I really encourage filmmakers to think about with their stories is not just to have like a plot, like a really like, it's not just plot. Like if you can think underneath your story, like what are you actually saying? Like think about subtext, like think about what the plot might be evoking in an audience. If you can kind of push it to that level and like have another meaning underneath what is like a fun experience to go on, a fun little journey to go on, then again, you're also going to elevate your film. Because particularly with newer filmmakers, I often spot stories that are all plot and they haven't quite landed, you know, why they're saying that or why their story is that way. So think about subtext. And I often like to think, and not every writer is the same. Some writers like to just have plots and their plots have meaning. Yeah. But I think I often like to think about, oh, these are kind of just some sentences of what I want to say to the world, or some things that I think are fun little anecdotes or metaphors that I want to kind of represent with my work. And then kind of starting and doing that kind of brainstorm amongst your kind of story brainstorming is really helpful. The other kind of pro tips that I like Dean talked to it as well, with like limitations, like leaning into your limitations, like not seeing them as a barrier, but seeing them as something to be embraced. Because often when filmmakers overstretch in 48, they aren't able to like fully realize the film that they're wanting to make because of the constraints of the deadline. And so if you instead lean into limitation and go, yep, I'm just going to embrace the fact that I can only shoot in one location because I've only got a day, and I'm going to really commit to that and make the most out of it, you're probably going to end up with a much better film. And similarly, if you lean into you're like, I've only got a phone to shoot on and only got a phone to edit on, and when I shoot on my phone, it's got this weird glitch. If you lean into that glitch and make it a story element, then I'm never going to know that it wasn't on purpose. You know, if it feels an authentic part of your story, then it's suddenly going to make something that is lower res, you know, more like better potentially than other films, you know. So lean into your limitations. Dean, do you prep with 48 other than a kit? Do you prep
other than a kit? Did you say?
Yeah, you test kit. And
we try to see what we'll have access to, like what, you know. So, for example, 1 year we knew that we could get into a cinema, and we knew that we had classic cars. One of the actor his dad had lots of classic cars, so these are things resources that we knew that we could access should the opportunity arise. And that year we ended up making a period musical, and so we did use the cinema. We used the big beautiful red curtains in that cinema, and we used the classic cars, and we had a couple of shots with that. And so yeah, I think if you can get a handle of what locations you might have access to, a lot of stories come up in bars, and if you know someone bars are tricky, because you know, usually if you've got a bar we shot in a bar one year and we had to be out by 3 o'clock because the bar was opening. So, you know, that's something, that's a limitation you have to deal with as well. It's like, okay, my whole shoot's going to take place until like 3 o'clock. But we knew that we had a bar, and you know, we would always, back in the early days, I don't really do that so much now, but back in the early days, we'd try to ensure that we had a bar just in case, because we knew that so many stories came up that would be cool to take place in a bar. Other prep, I don't prep story because I think that the best way to create something that can work well in this competition is to really work with that genre and those constraints you've been given. So I'm always nervous. Every year I'm nervous. It's like, will this be the year that I can't crack a story? And one year we started a new story at 3 a.m. because we were banging our heads against the wall all Friday night and Saturday morning. And we had a 10-minute break, came back and went, this isn't working. Let's start a new story. And we started one, got it done by like 6:30 in the morning, just as everyone was starting to arrive. But yeah, so I'm always nervous about that. But I think it's stronger for you if you don't prep any story. Casting, make sure you've got at least one good actor standing by if you can. You never know what you're going to write or what story you're going to have. So there's not a lot of point in getting heaps and heaps of people signed on, because then you're like, sorry, we wrote a thing that's only got 2 people in it. You know, like, but that becomes part of the stuff that happens at 9 o'clock on Friday. Is you know that you've got one good actor, so you've written that role. So we knew with Good Girl that we had Emma, and so we said, well, definitely, whatever happens, Emma's going to be in it. And then it turned out that Emma was actually the only human performer apart from voiceover stuff. So, you know, we just wrote with Emma in mind and with those constraints. If we needed extra people, that would have been that kind of 9 p.m. on Friday, ringing up saying, hey, we need you at sometime between 12 or 2 tomorrow, probably. Can you make it? So it's good to have people in your mind. And maybe you touch base with them and say, if you're free, if you're not in another team, you know, can we think about you for if something comes up? And a lot of there's no rule against prep. You know, prep is actually a really positive thing, because it means that it does create another limitation. If you're like, oh yeah, I've got that location and I have to shoot there and I've committed to shoot there. But like I said, and like Dean has also echoed, limitations are not a bad thing. And it does create like a little bit of focus when you're writing your story. You're like, okay, we've got this really amazing church and we really want to shoot in that church. And that's going to mean that we're going to, that we can only write a certain kind of story that fits in that location, but that's okay. It means that you'll make some swifter decisions. And some teams do some really like insane prep. Like we have a filmmaker that made a submarine and then turned it into an airplane. And we've had people who build costumes in advance, like really beautiful costumes that they don't know what genre they're going to get, but they're going to embrace this costume. So you can kind of do that side of things. And animated teams can build their assets as well. If you're working in animation, like a live action team or like a team that's shooting real people, you can create your characters, so you can create your and your backgrounds, so you can draw your world, and then you basically just write your story and animate over the 48-hour weekend. There's a question here around supporting young teams. I just want to jump back real quick. Cecilia's asked, what about stop motion? But I don't really know what about stop motion. Like, you can do stop motion if you want.
And we've had some really cool stop motion films over the years.
So you're welcome to. I'm not sure what the question specifically is. Is that about edits or? I'm not sure. If you're in Cecilia, you can. Otherwise, yeah, working with kids and supporting young teams. Okay, so if you're working with a school team, really the idea behind the school team is that the creative leadership should come from the students, as opposed to the parents or the teacher. However, you have a very important producerial role to keep everybody safe, to stop people making uninformed or crazy choices, to make sure that it is responsible. You know, there's a there's a lot of stuff that you learn by doing, and I have to admit that when I was doing short films when I was 15, I wasn't always doing them in the completely safest way that I should have been. So if I had somebody looking after me, then they would have been like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do all that on the road right now. Maybe we can find a different way to do that. So, so in terms of like working with kids, this is in the context of if you are running or managing a school team, the story and the directing and the editing primarily should come from them. The key creative roles should come from them, and you should be doing whatever you can to enable that, and to make sure that it's happening safely, keeping a schedule, making sure that, you know, you've got an overview so that we can achieve key points and move forward into the process without getting so behind or bogged down with stuff. Feed people, yes, absolutely. Especially if people get so hangry and they forget to eat because it's such a fast-paced weekend that on the shoot day you might be like, oh my god, why am I feeling like this? Oh, because it's 4 p.m. and I haven't eaten since 7 a.m. I should have been eating. So have people doing that, making sure that there are snacks, even just stuff that you can take around on a platter so people can kind of just keep eating on the run. If you are, so that's supporting young teams.
Yeah, and just to add to that, because that is that producerial role. Like as producers, I'm a producer primarily as my my job, and my role is to be like camp mum and to look after people and to provide them with the scaffolding and the schedule and the structure so that they can make decisions. And importantly, with young teams, often what we hear back from teachers and parents is that they can often end up in conflict and they don't have anyone, they're not able to like mediate it themselves. And so being that really amazing mediator, if there is creative disagreement between the young people, just to remind them that it's meant to be fun and no one's going to die, you know, from the film not being exactly as someone envisaged. You know, it's like it's a practice, and it's not going to be the only film they ever make, and kind of keeping things at a chill level, particularly with the hormones raging. We get to visit some of the teams over the weekend, and a couple of years I've visited some of the school teams, and people are tired and they are a little bit emotional, and so being a supportive person for them while they're going through that, so that they can kind of survive that flow of the weekend. Because then on the other end, when they get to see the finished product, they're often deeply proud of what they achieved.
The other thing there would be like, because if you're working with a young team or some teenagers, it may, some of the stuff we've talked about may be a little bit more difficult for them in terms of it may feel more personal if your choice isn't agreed upon in a story or something like that. And that may be something, it may be more difficult to sort of step away from the ego. So I think having that sort of role of a mediator and helping to guide choice making and decisions, and making sure that people know that, you know, we don't have time to get stuck on one thing and for fight to happen about this one thing. We just need to make a choice, and we'll make the best choice we can, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to keep moving forward, and we're going to make more choices and move forward. And if you're working with people that don't have that, because it's an acquired skill that comes with, you know, experience, and if you haven't acquired that skill yet or haven't acquired the experience yet, then that's really important for if you're working with rangatahi, then that would be something I would think your role would really boil down to, is keeping those teams, keeping things moving, helping to break stalemates in a way that keeps that keeps everyone sort of keeps their mana of people. We just try to encourage everybody to participate, to put forward suggestions, but to also recognize that not everybody's suggestion can always happen to make this short film. So it'll be a delicate dance to dance, but I think that becomes a key responsibility for whoever's supervising those younger teams. And I think it does, particularly with those younger teams, that pre-assignment of roles and responsibility, and where someone's decision making begins and ends, and like having a conversation about that up front is really helpful. I'm conscious that we are at overtime. We're at 8:06 p.m. And we've waxed on for over an hour now about hints and tips, but I just wanted to acknowledge and thank you all for joining us on this call, and for your questions, and for being part of this korero, and Dean for sharing your knowledge. Bridget, Dean and I are all available to you whether you're in our region. If you're an Across Aotearoa person, Dean is your person. Te Whanganui Tara Wellington, it's me. Auckland, it's Bridget. Joel and Rachel in Christchurch, they can't be with us here tonight, but we are all available to you. So if you have questions leading into the weekend or during the weekend, I'm getting calls all through. I'm actually available 24/7 through the weekend, to my husband's detriment. But we are here for you. So if you have things that you come up against as you're preparing your films, let me know, or let us know, whoever is your regional manager. Our information is also, our phone numbers and email addresses are also on the website. So you're able to reach out to us. Tell the police if you're going to do anything silly with guns.
Exactly. And if you want to run down Cuba Street in your underwear, don't tell me about it.
If you've got fake guns, tell the police you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Please don't get arrested. Please do not start an incident.
Don't do anything illegal. Don't do anything illegal. Only do things that are safe. Have fun.
If you find yourself thinking, am I going to get in trouble for this? The answer is probably yes. So if you've got, careful with guns. Definitely, if you're doing a crime thing with guns, it's really important that you are as open and honest about that to anyone that might come along and tase you. You really don't want to be tased on a 48 hours.
Yeah, and Ness has noted that the non-emergency number is 105. And so this hui has all been recorded, so it will be available in our 48 hours socials at some stage soon. So thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you in person, and you'll see us on the live stream next Friday.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks very much. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.